After the success of Sgt. Pepper's, Paul had another high-concept idea, this time a film that would capture the freewheeling, unstructured style of the late 60s, but there was just one problem. Paul had no idea how to make a film. This is the story of Magical Mystery Tour. The Beatles were down a key figure. Their manager, Brian Epstein, who was part manager, part surrogate father, had died suddenly and unexpectedly. Paul had already pitched Brian on Magical Mystery Tour, but shortly after his death, he felt like the band was in a precarious position with their business. No one really understood how everything worked except for Brian. Paul pushed for getting Magical Mystery Tour started ASAP so that the band could stay visible and therefore lucrative. No one else was all that excited about the idea, but Paul, with the determination of a good student trying to wrangle a group project, pushed the idea forward. Paul said, quote, "We literally made it up as we went." Yeah, Paul, we can tell. There was no real cast to speak of, just an entourage of friends and a collection of oddball character actors, and a yellow bus painted with the Magical Mystery Tour logo that Paul had designed. And as you can imagine, it was a mess. 5 days of shooting beset by technical and logistical problems. They had intended to film pickups at Shepperton Studios, but they had forgotten to book stage time there or anywhere else. Fun fact, Shepperton Studios was currently taken over by Stanley Kubrick's production of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was strictly amateur time, says Peter Brown. If Brian had been alive, he would have pulled it into some kind of professional shape or talked the Beatles out of it, but without him, Paul was not to be appeased. At a friends and family screening of the film, Neil Aspinall recalls, "Nobody had the vaguest idea what it was about. There was a lot of chair shuffling and nervous coughing throughout the seemingly endless screening. It runs only 50 minutes, during which several people excused themselves ostensibly to use the loo and never came back." John called it the world's most expensive home movie, but how are the Beatles to recoup the cost of the production? They couldn't exhibit in theaters, it was too short to be a feature film, so they pitched it to ITV and the BBC. According to Peter Brown, the BBC were drooling at the mouths at the very idea of it until they got a look at the finished product. ITV turned it down, but BBC decided that no matter what, the Beatles are still a draw, and so they purchased it. Peter Brown was less sure. He felt like it was so bad it would damage the Beatles' reputation. He said, "I tried to suggest writing off the expense and moving on, but Paul didn't know it was a mess and insisted on making the deal." And it was not well received. James Green from the Evening News said, "Take your pick from the words rubbish, piffle, chaotic, flop, tasteless, nonsense, emptiness, and appalling." And the Daily Mirror said, "The whole boring saga confirms a long-held suspicion that the Beatles have made so much money that they can apparently afford to be contemptuous of the public."